Ela had dreamed of this day for as long as she could remember. The village church was decorated with white roses, and soft music floated through the air. She sat at the altar in her wheelchair, glowing with hope, and wearing a dress that sparkled like the morning sun. Today, she believed, was the start of her forever. But as the last note of the wedding march played, her groom leaned over to whisper something to his best man, then turned and walked away. Without saying a word, he left her there in front of a shocked crowd. Gasps echoed through the church. Confusion turned into quiet murmurs, then harsh whispers. Why would he marry someone in a wheelchair? Someone said loudly, not bothering to be discreet. Some people avoided looking at her. A few shook their heads, and others stared at her with pity. But no one came forward. Ila's hands trembled slightly as she held her bouquet tighter. Her joyful smile slowly faded, replaced by a quiet, aching strength. She had spent her life proving she was more than her disability. And now, in the most important moment of all, it felt like the world had confirmed her deepest fear, that love was only meant for the able, the flawless. Still, she didn't cry. She wouldn't let them see her fall apart. Ila sat tall, back straight, her heart silently breaking as rose petals drifted down around her like snow. She had come expecting love, but was met with cruelty instead. What she didn't know was that this heartbreak would stir something powerful inside her. Outside the church, the sun felt cold. Guests left in awkward silence, walking quickly with their eyes on the ground. No one looked at her. No one offered comfort. The people she once called friends, the family who had celebrated her engagement, now muttered bitter words behind her back. She should have known better, one woman whispered. A man like him, marrying a girl in a wheelchair? It was never real, someone else said. Ila sat quietly at the edge of the steps, her bouquet drooping in her lap, her wedding veil brushing the ground like the last piece of a vanished dream. The petals scattered around her no longer meant celebration. They were a cruel reminder of everything she had lost in a single, humiliating moment. Her heart felt empty, her future gone. Then, through the thick cloud of judgment and silence, a deep engine sound cut through the air. A black motorcycle appeared, roaring into view and breaking through the crowd's whispers. Heads turned, eyes widened. It wasn't just the noise, it was the man riding it. Damon, tall, broad, dressed in leather and covered in tattoos. His name was often spoken with fear and caution. He stopped the bike, climbed off slowly, and removed his helmet. The crowd went still. What could a man like Damon want at the wedding of a heartbroken bride? No one moved. But Ila looked up, and for the first time that day, someone was really looking back at her. The crowd didn't speak, barely breathed as Damon walked toward her, slow and steady, carrying the weight of 1,000 untold stories with every step. His black boots thudded against the stone path, his dark jacket moving gently in the breeze. Tattoos covered his arms like marks from battles no one dared to ask about. He was the kind of man people whispered about in quiet rooms, the one parents warned their kids to stay away from. But now, he wasn't just a rumor or a name spoken in fear. He was here, standing beside her. Ila looked up, confused at first, wondering if this was just another cruel twist in a day already full of pain. But then she saw his eyes. They weren't cold or distant. They were soft, filled with a deep understanding, as if he could feel what she felt. And something else was there too, something kind, real, and human. Without saying a word, Damon knelt in front of her, not out of fear, not out of pity, but with purpose. Slowly he reached for her hand, his rough fingers brushing against her trembling ones. Everything around them faded away. If he couldn't see your worth, Damon said, his voice low but clear, then let me show them what real love looks like. The crowd gasped, but Damon didn't move. He wasn't doing it for show. He wasn't looking for attention. He was making a a quiet promise in the middle of her broken dream. And for the first time that day, Isla felt truly seen. Not as a burden, not as someone broken, but as a person worthy of love, just as she was. With calm strength, Damon gently lifted her into his arms. She gasped, not from fear, but from the shock of being held like that. Not out of pity, but with pride. The crowd stepped aside as he turned, carrying her like royalty, not like the woman they had all just judged. Everyone stared. The silence was thick until Damon's voice cut through it like sunlight through clouds. "She doesn't need pity. She deserves love," he said, "and I will spend the rest of my life proving it to her." No one spoke. The same people who had once judged her now watched in silence. The whispers were gone, replaced by quiet shame and awe. Damon didn't make a speech. No one clapped. But the truth in his actions said everything. As Damon carried her down the same aisle where she had been left behind, it was no longer a walk of shame. It became a walk of strength. Every step said, "She matters. She is worthy. She is loved." And in that moment, something shifted. What once looked like weakness now showed strength. What had been thrown aside was now held up with courage. Damon hadn't just lifted Illa into his arms. He had lifted her out of the dark place the world had put her in, and into the light of something rare, something real, something that couldn't be broken. The sun glowed over the quiet lake, casting golden light on a simple ceremony. There were no big decorations, no fancy dresses, just a few people gathered, not for a show, but for something more honest. Truth. Illa wore a soft, flowing dress, her smile shining brighter than any jewel. Damon stood beside her, hands steady, heart open. His rough past faded behind him, softened by something stronger than pain. Love. There were no cameras, no over-the-top flowers, just wild blooms, the gentle wind, and the quiet sound of hope. Some guests were old friends who came back, sorry for their silence. Others were strangers, moved by the story, drawn to witness a new beginning. They didn't read vows from a book. They spoke from the heart. Once left alone at an altar, Illa now stood surrounded by warmth. Once feared by many, Damon now stood as proof that people can change. In her, he saw strength. In him, she found safety. Together, they built something real. Illa didn't just find a husband. She found someone who saw her fully, not in spite of her wheelchair, but through it. Damon didn't just find love. He found peace, the kind that comes when someone with a hardened heart chooses to be gentle. Because sometimes, the people who've been hurt the most are the ones who love the deepest, and in a world that often looks past the broken, this unexpected pair reminded everyone, real love sees differently and heals completely.